Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on September 20th, 2021 at approximately 11:58 a.m. PST. Now, so far we have discussed in this last little session here, we've discussed things starting with thought, making a choice, the 4 steps in attaining success regarding that choice, being purpose, plan, persistence, and patience. Then we talked about how to create the outcome, the foundation, and then expansion. Well, if you go back over the last week or a little bit, okay, you'll find all the details on all of those. So before we get started on today's, which we're going to talk about community and how all that pulls together. I'm going to try and do this a little bit. Well, I'm going to do it a little differently. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel so that we can get this message out to the entirety of the world, not just the people that are seeing the video. Okay, but when you take this video and you take it to heart and you spread the word to everybody that you come in contact with, that you can do it with, okay, that is what we were trying to bring this message back for, is that working together, we can make this a better world for most people. But it's going to require the assistance of everybody involved. In other words, you. This is not something that I can do myself, on my own. But I will tell you this. Every tool that I offer, if it applies to my life, I am doing it. One of the obvious issues there is I mentioned there was a sign that used to sit back here. Okay. And I have now moved it, so it's sitting right here in front of me. Okay. And it literally says, I have legally attained a minimum of $2,000 by September 30th, 2021 at 23:59, which is military time for 1 minute before midnight. Now, I said I was going to move it. It is now moved. Okay. And again, this is a question of deciding what is necessary to get your life running smoothly for you. And of course, that other sign that still sits there is the Woodburn one that says, I am worth it. Okay. These are 2 fundamental backbone statements that apply to everything that you're working with. You have to feel that you're worth it. Either that or you got to borrow that feeling from somebody else. If somebody else is coming to you and saying, hey, I believe in you, I know you can do this, you may have to draw on that until you develop your own sense of self-worth. Okay. Wait, I'm looking over here going, what is that? It's a binder. Okay. Anyway, once you have the energy in your office to start with worked out, then you expand it into your house. Okay. And the more smoothly the energy runs, the happier you're going to be. And you're just going to have to take my word for it until you experience it. Okay, but let me ask you this. When you're trying to work in your own home, does it feel easier to work or more relaxing when it's all neat and organized? Or does it feel more relaxing when it's absolutely cluttered? Now, theoretically, that's going to be a little rhetorical. Many of you have gotten used to the clutter. And there is a very big difference between it working better and you simply being used to it. Okay. But there's an old saying that goes, it is not, a child is not raised by one family, it is raised by the entire community. And the reason for that is because, yes, the parents are absolutely essential. But something we do have to remember is bloodline parents are not always a necessity. It is absolutely, from my standpoint, absolutely a clear-cut issue and this is no offense to anybody, but children do need a dominant male and a dominant female influence. And here's why. No matter how open-minded you are, no matter how clear-cut you are, and this is where I can annoy some people, I will tell you wholeheartedly that where it comes to relationships, personally, I have no problem with same-sex relationships. But there is a problem, and that is whether it's two guys or two women. It doesn't make any difference. Okay. They still have exactly the same problem. Okay. A male will never, in all likelihood, think like a female. They will not process information like a female does. Okay, and it's the same as a female will not process information the same way a male does. So even in a same-sex couple, it is absolutely imperative to find a dominant role model, be that through an organization like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, or be it through friends that you know of that can spend time with that child to show them how the other sex actually thinks and how it responds. And absolutely pick your mentors, pick your mentors carefully. Not all people are qualified to be mentors. Just accept that one as what it is. But they do require the outside influence. Okay, now I will tell you, this does not mean that you have to have a male counterpart in your life or a female counterpart. It simply means it is imperative for the child to have a dominant male and dominant female role model because they do process things differently. Okay, now this said, the more people, as you get your life organized, you'll start drawing the people to you that are more compatible with your way of thinking. Okay, and it's that group of people that becomes your local community. So as you get your life organized, and you're talking to those people around you about how your life is now running more smoothly. Okay, absolutely. If you require, or if you desire some extra pointers, absolutely drop me a line in the notes below. If you want to drop a note to me that is not seen by the general public, drop it to me in any one of the contact points below. Rest assured, what ends up happening is I respond to it, and that's where the information dies. Okay, is whatever I'm talking to you about. I mean, it was funny. Years ago, I had two clients. Okay, that were identical. They were identical clients. Identical as in both were married, both had kids, and both loved their husbands dearly. But both, and this was the part I missed, both were striving to find a way to comfortably leave their husbands and leave their families to go off and pursue another relationship. Okay, and both were looking for a female partner. Both the wives were looking for a female partner. So, in all fairness, unbeknownst to me, I was helping both of them, and because of the way I work, what I didn't piece together until after the fact was that I was working with two women from two different relationships that were in the same boat, but the partner they were trying to get together with was the wife of the other husband. Okay, as it turned out, it worked out beautifully. But this is what I mean by it's really a community issue. If you've got a problem, talk to somebody that can help you sort through it. Okay, the woodwork that I've been getting done from my books is done because I talked to a stranger. And he really was a stranger when I first met him. Okay, so got to know him a little and got him doing some work for me, which is what is happening now. But the trick is, as you get your energy sorted around, you'll find that the people that are not compatible with you, as I found myself, will be moved out of the equation. Okay, they will be moved aside. Whether it may not be a fallout, you may just simply stop hanging around them. Okay, and as that happens, you'll find your life takes on a much smoother, much more consistent pattern. Okay. All in all, we are dealing with everybody literally. And when I talk about everybody, I mean every entity in existence. When we work together, we can make this a better life for virtually everybody. Okay, I was talking to somebody the other day. It was absolutely priceless because remember, not only do I work in consulting where it comes to individuals, where it comes to relationships and business, but I also deal with UFOs, alien technologies, that sort of thing. Well, I had a client the other day contact me because she had seen something she couldn't identify, and nobody she had talked to could identify. Well, she laid it out. It took me about 30 seconds to figure out what she was looking at. And then the most wondrous thing happened. Turned out she had actually made contact with a literal earth elemental. Okay. And yeah, they are not humanoid by any functional stretch. Okay. But they can take on a humanoid form. They are literally made of dirt, rock, twigs, whatever. Okay. But again, she kept asking people because she was running through this and couldn't figure out how to deal with it. So we discussed it for a little bit, put her back on track, and away she went. And this is why it is imperative you surround yourself with people that do complement your thinking, okay, that do encourage you to land on your feet and to become independent. But understand, if you're following a spiritual guide that is telling you to fear everything, including the creator themselves, you may be following a bit of a misguided direction. Okay, now I am not perfect by any functional stretch. Okay, in my eyes, it's very simple. You have two sides of the same coin. You've got love and you've got fear. Okay, anger, frustration, all these temperamental misguidances are based on fear. And this is why I say it is absolutely, especially with regards to this next issue. People keep saying, I keep hearing parents tell the kids, don't talk to strangers. Well, something that you would be wise to listen to, in my opinion, is this. When a child is first born, that child is a stranger to you, and you are a stranger to that child. And yet, people say, don't talk to strangers, and they're all over the idea of talking to a newborn. Okay. Now, I will tell you this. When you're dealing with strangers, absolutely keep your distance. Like, until you know the person, going, especially for a child, going within reach of a stranger is not a good idea. Okay. But talking to them from outside of reach, in my opinion, is not a problem because that's how they learn how to communicate. But it is absolutely imperative that you take the children, teach them how to say, how to talk to people they don't know, how to interact with them, but keep the caution side available because there's a lot of really weird, twisted people out there that will hurt kids. Now, I'm not stupid. I know there are some pretty negative people out there. But teaching a child not to talk to strangers is a good way to set them up for having troubles talking to adults, as they get older. Now, I was never told not to talk to strangers. Okay. My self-esteem was a shambles anyway. But when you're building the community around you, okay, it really boils down to this. Making contact with people that have skill sets that you don't have to complement the ones you do have. Now, the other thing about community is this aspect. When you're born, okay, and the best way it was described to me as far as your senses, your abilities, your skills, that sort of thing goes, when you were born, picture all of these different components, your senses, your strengths, your weaknesses, your likes, your dislikes, including whatever taste you have, okay, in the way of food or clothing. Okay, or such qualities as courage, communication, fear, any of these. Let's say you've got an apartment building. Each room has one component. Now, you've got the energy in your body at this point, when you first start out, to light up 15 rooms. So you get to pick which 15 senses you desire to have. Okay. Needless to say, when I was growing up, social skills was not the one that I picked. I probably should have. But you've got 15 rooms that you can power. So your only option is cut out all these other senses, all these other abilities, right, in favor of the ones that you do choose. Or increase the energy level, the self-awareness level. Which, by the way, tomorrow is what we're going to be discussing, is the self-awareness side of it. Now, where it comes to the community side, people talk about being afraid of this, that, and the other thing. When you deal with other people with other interests, you can gain the encouragement and courage from them to try things that you never thought about trying. Now, I will caution you. Some people will encourage you to try some really dense things. Heavy-duty alcohol, heavy-duty, extremely addictive drugs, not always illegal ones. Okay, prime example is smoking. Bad idea in my personal opinion. Of course, I'm one of these people who went, smoking makes you part of the in crowd. I didn't like the in crowd. So, of course, that gave me the extra incentive not to start smoking, which is a little backwards, but it did work. Okay, but they will encourage you to do some pretty stupid things, some pretty intelligent things. Okay, they will encourage you to overcome certain fears because you haven't been there before. But that's where it starts, this issue of doing something, of talking to somebody that has successfully done something. Now, for instance, okay, I used to hang around with when I was just a little kid, I still actually communicated with people to a degree. And of course, with 6 kids in the family, plus 2 foster kids, a block parent home, and the Sunday school setup, plus the newspapers, I knew a lot of people. Okay, but we had this one little trait. Now, some of you my age may remember this kind of thing. Today we have what are called zip lines. They've got harnesses, they've got ropes all over the place, they've got all kinds of safety gear. What we had was a great big humongous tree that hung out over a 300-foot precipice. Or at least that's what it seemed to be. It might have been shorter than that. May have only been 200, but you get the idea. And we had a real thick rope tied onto the tree with a knot tied in the end of it. Okay. And what we would do, this thing was hanging out in the middle of nowhere. So it took a lot of encouragement for them to try and talk me into it. And eventually I did. Okay. Because what would happen is you grab the rope and you go running with the rope in your hand, you swing out into the middle of the end of the air, over top of this, couple 100-foot drop. Now, our safety net, our safety harness was a good, solid grip. Okay, if you ever let go, you were in trouble. Okay, but there was a safety net below, so to speak. If you were lucky on the way down, you would get caught up in the branches from the trees hanging on the side of the cliff, instead of landing on the rocks below. That was our idea of a safety net. Not necessarily wise. Okay, today you've got all kinds of safety nets. And where it comes to community, today you have all kinds of knowledge, all kinds of access to information. The funny part about it is you used to go out and talk to people and you'd learn how to communicate face to face. Nowadays, people don't do that. Nowadays, I find way more people on the internet that are spending more and more time screaming at each other and never working anything out. Because the reality is they're screaming at each other and just hang up the phone. They don't resolve a thing. They don't know how. This is one of the reasons why marriages collapse. Because communication comes into a complication. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to share community property. Okay, so they look for the quick fix, the easy out, and they go and get a divorce. Now, sometimes divorces are absolutely necessary. Okay, people do change as they get older, and there is actually a neurological reason for that. But I'll get into that at another time. In the meantime, understand that the more smoothly the energy in your house is running, the easier it will be for you to cope with the rest of the world outside. Assuming you desire to go outside and cope with the rest of the world at all. Okay. Very important that you really get an understanding that working together, we can make this a better world for most people. But it's going to take the effort of you. Okay, of you as an individual straightening out your own world at the same time. Now, the tools that I offer are tools that I personally am using. Okay, that I personally put to use if they apply to me. If they don't apply to me, then for obvious reasons I don't use them. Okay. But the issue of community, one of the first things that we should look at, and it's one that I myself fall short on as well. But I do think that never mind think. Okay. Effective the next time my son is home. He's at school right now. But I do believe what we're going to start doing, because it's the only time that we're pretty much guaranteed to be in the same place, is we'll start having breakfast at the dinner table again. Turn off the phones, turn off the TV, just have breakfast. Pick one meal out of the day, be it breakfast, lunch, or supper. Okay, some people call lunch dinner. Okay, but pick one meal out of the day that everybody in the household sits down at the table without the cell phones, without the video games, without the TV, and you sit down and you share a meal. Okay, it only takes half an hour to an hour. Share the meal, clean up after the meal, and then go your separate ways if that's what you choose. But you will find by doing that, you will find that your household runs a whole lot more smoothly. You'll find that you have a chance to communicate. You have a chance to find out where the strengths and weaknesses are in both yourself and the other people in your household. And again, this will reduce the stress level around the house. And it will also reduce the stress level when you go out to deal with people outside the house. Okay. The other thing you may find, and I'm not entirely certain yet, but it does stand to reason, is if you finally start spending time together, you may just figure out how to keep your house running smoothly together instead of one person doing all the work and everybody else reaping the benefits, as it were. Okay, again, when we're talking community, it starts at home and then expands out into the neighbors, expands out into the community, and eventually expands out into the world at large. Down the road, it will also expand out into the universe beyond. Okay, because we will eventually get there, considering mankind's already gotten off the planet. I do not like that word. But considering mankind has already attained travel away from Earth, they just haven't told you much about it. Okay, but working as a community, we can actually put things to right. Okay, remember, even in your own home, when you're saying rules and regulations down, make sure you yourself are following those same rules that you're laying out for everybody else. Because if you don't, that unit will fracture. Okay, it will go its own direction. Okay, so make sure you're putting laws in place or rules in place that you yourself are following as well. Again, if they apply to you. Okay, the reality is that men and women and boys and girls, males and females, frankly, all think essentially the same way. They've got the same strengths, they've got the same weaknesses, but every individual processes things in their own fashion. And it is, from my experience, pretty cut and dried. Males and females, on the whole, process things different than each other. Never mind the fact that it is simply it's an individual thing at the same time. But by spending a little more time around the house, okay, and just that one meal a day, we're not talking for a massive shift in your entire life. But I will tell you this, like when I was growing up, there was a saying that used to be used. You know, a parent would go to put dinner on the table. Oh, I don't, and the kids would, and it happened back then, it happens today. But back then it was like, I don't like that food. And the parents back then would go, if you're not allergic to it and it's not making you physically ill, it's dinner. You don't have to like it, you just have to eat it because my job as a parent is to make sure you eat and then to make sure you get a chance to eat. Okay. Now, yes, most kids will have one thing they like or dislike. Myself, I developed a problem with certain textures. Okay. That I just couldn't tolerate. But you still had to try it. You still had to experience it. Because I'll tell you, if you only do the things you enjoy, how are you possibly going to expand and learn other things to enjoy if you don't experience them? Now, there are some things we can safely say are not enjoyable, as in getting bullied is no fun. That's where the parents, again, if you've built the communication lines in the community a little better, you don't have as big a problem with the bullying. Okay, but that's because it is a community effort to get things turned around. Okay, now that said, because I do my best to keep these to the half hour mark, I'm going to wind this down. But remember, working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. But it is going to require your assistance. So while we're going through this, absolutely, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel because there's a lot of information still coming. And I'm still putting things together as I go along. But with that in mind, I will be back again tomorrow sometime. Oh, don't forget to hit the alert button when you subscribe to the channel to remind you when the next video is coming out. Okay, but I will be back again tomorrow sometime. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.